Hi, all. A very good afternoon. We shall be starting in next 2 minutes. Thank you everyone for joining. Hello all, very good afternoon. Before I start, if someone can let me know, am I loud and clear?
Yes.
Thank you, Madhuri. So hello all, a very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, on behalf of the Branalytics team and a partner Compass, we welcome you all on a roundtable, which is Unlocking BFSI Business Value Through Automation. So before we start a roundtable, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight. Requesting the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are sharing their thoughts. Of course, we would be encouraging Q&A. If any, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. Put your questions to the concerned speaker. Yeah? Madhuri, am I audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So before we start, I'm happy to introduce our partner Compass. Compass is a software that gamifies your incentive programs, integrate your CRM, pick one of our interactive game templates and publish it in less than 10 minutes. No more spreadsheets. With easy to publish game templates, leaderboards, and analytics. Compass empowers your sales manager with game-like elements, rewards, recognition, and complete access to relevant information. Compass motivates your on-the-ground sales force to do more. The end result is a highly energized organization with accelerated performances and sustained growth. Today, we have some interesting set of thought leaders who are going to share their thoughts on deploying AI and automation to drive customer engagement efficiency, and productivity. I'm so glad to introduce our panel members. We have Mr. Gladson Pinto, Chief Innovation Officer with Fino Futures Technologies, Mr. Palani Balasubramaniam Nama, VP Head of IT for Operations, Innovations, and Digital Transformation with Mashreq Bank, Mr. Abhishek Singh, Head of Health Insurance Solutions with Aura Technologies Limited, Mr. Sandeep Podwal, Head of Marketing with Commercial Bank of Dubai, Mr. Ajay Shinoy, Chief Business Officer, Compass by Zozode. And we have Medari, VP Marketing with Compass by Zozode as our wonderful moderator. So over to you, Medini, to start the session. Thank you, everyone, once again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ekta. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our entire panel. I've connected with a lot of you before this session, and I did give you a very quick insight into the fact that this is something what we call a closed round table. So we will be recording this session and we will be sharing the link with people who register for this webinar. We'll be hosting it. So do not worry if you do not hear any two questions from the audience. I'm sure there'll be enough questions coming from the panelists. Very quickly, my name is Medini. I'm currently the VP Marketing at Compass by Zozode. I want to do a very quick round of introductions. First of all of you, then let me introduce the topic and let's dive right into it. My only rule is this is not going to be a structured, boring webinar. I hope that all of you will begin your years of experience and tell me all the problems you had with automation, all the great things automation has helped you overcome. And generally, I hope we can have a wonderful chat. So over to you. Let's start with in no particular order. Gladson, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Medini. Let me introduce myself first. I've been into a BFSI industry for over 22 years now. Started off as a banker back in India before I moved on to Oracle and Computer Sciences Corporation, after which I moved on to UAE. I was working in the banking sector for 12 years before I joined Fino Future, fintech, which is helping banks as well as other businesses connect with partners, aggregate and curate them in a way where they can save a lot of time. So that's what I currently do. Onto the topic of automation. Yes, automation is a journey which every bank across the regions have taken up this journey, but they are in different levels of automation. Particularly if I speak about banks in this region through my interaction over the years and even in my current job profile, what I understand about banks is they have invested a lot of resources on the automation side, but particularly in areas like incentive calculation and payouts, these are the areas which have been kept for the farther end, the later end. And other than that, as I said, the area of incentive automation is a bit complex, heavily data driven, but there are good opportunities here simply because incentives are key to sales and business growth. I was talking to a very prominent industry veteran just last week, and he was saying people work for incentives more than salaries, which is so true. And if you don't have the level of automation that is possible today with the tools and technology available to us, then what happens is there is a lag in the incentive payout. And basically, it works in cycles, right? The more faster your incentives, you get to correct your business course properly. You need to drive your numbers. That's on one side. That's from the bank side. Even from the individual side, if I create a scorecard which is complex and which I can't understand easily, what happens then is I just try to do my best in my understanding of what will earn me incentive as a salesperson, a person who actually at the ground level grows business. And this is the opportunity in front of us for automation of the incentive payout cycle on one side and making it easy for the user, have a user experience for an internal user in a way which he can connect and relate to. He can easily see what actually drives numbers for the bank as well as for himself. as well as there is a gamification angle to it, where he then competes with other players in the team to see what works best for him, what are his strengths. He can bring out those strengths, and all this is enabled through the level of automation we can reach. Now, it doesn't stop there. Once a lot of data which today banks perhaps have in Excel sheets outside will all get into the bank system once you start automation. Now that then sows the seed for higher level of artificial intelligence going forward. And we have a lot of examples being done on the customer facing side by banks. I think this is one area where their sales front, the feet, they can be touched in a very meaningful way, where they can then drive the business of the bank on one side and give the customers what they require. So this is something which I've experienced through my journey with all these banks.
Wonderful. Ajay, I'm actually going to bring you in. Gladson beautifully gave his intro and talked about Compass's biggest selling proposition. So very quickly over to you, and then we'll get on to the conversation.
I mean, I know that Gladson's going to take my job now. We actually put together exactly what my pitch usually is to customers. Anyway, as a quick introduction, my name is Ajay. I've been with Compass for a little while now, and I'm the Chief Business Officer. Like Gladson, I also started my career in banking in Citibank way back in the day. Same vintage as Gladson. In fact, when I see Gladson, your name, I think we have run into each other sometime in the last 22 years. And every time I say that number, I feel old. It's invigorating to actually be able to meet all of you face to face. Unfortunately, we didn't have this webinar 2 weeks ago because I was in the UAE last week and meeting with some of your colleagues. In fact, I met with one Mr. Sheikh from Central Bank of Dubai. One thing I can say, Palni, extremely thrilled to meet with you because I met with FAB, ADCB, SCB, and singularly what everyone said was that Mashreq is doing something brilliant on technology. Very, very groundbreaking. And if that's one bank that, if you want to pick a bank in the Middle East, and when they say in the Middle East, it's a big one. I mean, I know FAB is like large, but QNB is the largest, I think, at the moment. Not if the UAE can help it, but I'm assuming there's more news in the offing. Very, very keen to understand from all of you industry stalwarts in the UAE, from the banking sector, how is it that digitization is going to kind of be leveraged by the banks? I personally spent a lot of time in Qatar in my earlier avatars with Vodafone. I've seen how banks work. It's nothing compared to what we see in India. Gone are your multiple relationship managers and tellers and your, even including your people who are in charge of opening and closing the safe. It's brilliant the way that multiple systems have been brought in. Extremely keen to listen to all of you. I think I'm going to be one of those. I promise I'll be one of those silent spectators today and actually understand more from you than talk, which is a promise I usually break. But that's me.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Ajay. Sandeep, since Ajay talked about DCB, please over to you. CBD.
Excuse me. Sorry, I was muted. We need to get out of this mindset of muting and unmuting. Hopefully, we'll get back to meetings face to face. But again, having said that, again, fingers crossed. I mean, numbers seem to be going up, so I don't know. I mean, the jury is still out whether COVID behind us or not. Hello everybody. My name is Sandeep Poduwal. I head up marketing and corporate communications at Commercial Bank of Dubai. Been here for about 4.5 years. Been in banking for 15 plus years. Been on multiple sides of the fence. I started off my career in advertising. I was in Lintas. Been in FMCG. Run an agency of my own, did some bit of digital marketing. So from a vintage perspective, Ajay, let's not go there.
Let's not go there. I was smiling to myself. I said, this is going to be one of those stories where Sandeep and me are going to say, oh, you put up your own shop. Well, I did that too. And we still have, and that's only a minor part of our careers at the moment.
Correct. So like we say, after a certain age, it's like we stuck at that age, and then it's just years of experience that comes in. So yeah, from a marketing automation, I mean, from an automation perspective, yeah, I mean, quite a lot to share in terms of our journey, especially here at Commercial Bank of Dubai. We've been we are a fairly small bank relative to the big daddies out here, to the likes of the Fab and the Emirates NBDs and ADCBs of the world. But I feel we've also done a fair amount in terms of pioneering the whole digital transformation journey. And again, happy to share some of our sort of experiences on that road. Still a lot to be done, to be fair. But again, I mean, I think given our size, given our agility, we managed to do that. And again, I'd probably just sort of start off with one thing, which when 5 years back, when fintechs were out there, and that used to be the whole sort of buzzword around. And I remember, I think Bill Gates was the one who was famously quoted saying that banks are going to die. Banking may live, but banks are going to die. I think we've come sort of now to the realization that banks may not die, and fintechs are not necessarily enemies. But how can we work together to actually get the best for the customer? So I mean, and we've sort of embraced that fair and square. I mean, we've got about 10 fintech partners currently, if not more, who we are working with actively across different spaces. So I think that, I mean, and that's the journey. So we don't need to be scared of fintechs. Fintechs don't need to be scared of banks. But how can we work collaboratively to actually give the best to the, and obviously, I mean, fintechs bring a lot to the plate. I mean, banks bring a lot to the plate. And how do you marry the two to actually give the best to the customer is what's going to be key to how the business sort of evolves in the future.
Really interesting you said that, because I was talking to State Bank of Mauritius yesterday, and they have a really small setup in Bombay at the moment. Small by virtue of comparison to all the other big boys in Bombay. It's amazing how they've built their entire network with all the fintechs, including outward remittances and outward investments. They're being a 300-member team in India, which is really, I mean, 300-member team is like across 12 branches. They're talking about close to about 7 million customers that they actually cater to today, and it's amazing. They never meet their partners. It's all transactional, but end of the day, it's about 7 to 8 million customers. It's amazing that whole infrastructure is coming to bear, wherein the fintechs are no longer the enemy or perceived as the enemy, and the banks are more of the stable background to these fintechs.
True.
Palani, over to you. Ajay was most excited, like he told you even in his intro, he was most excited about having you on board, because he was like, my God, when we talk about banking in Middle East, when we talk about Mashreq, they are doing the most disruptive things. They're the coolest things. They're the coolest players in the market. And just very quickly, so introduce yourself, please, and tell me, why does Mashreq Bank seem to have this reputation around the world that one of the coolest, most disruptive banks?
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you for this opportunity. To be honest, I think it's a nice forum. I really appreciate to learn from each of you guys, and it's a great opportunity for me too as well. So briefly about myself, I belong to the same age group or experience group most of you guys are. So almost similar. Started my career as an entrepreneur, started an IT company, did well. Later, the American dream brought me into the corporate world. So yeah, been around the world, and yeah, predominantly my experience is with Dell for almost 30% of my career, and later more than 60% of my career was with Societe Generale, which is a European bank. And post that, now I am with Mashreq. So I didn't really hop too many times, but yes, whatever I did, I had to take a spiral growth across the organization. So as part of this, career move, I have done a very versatile role. So I have headed large IT teams. I was site head of IT for SocGen, and I was head of IT and innovation for Societe Generale. And now I am with Mashreq, dominantly driving the transformation and the operations transformation agenda for them. So now coming back to the question why Mashreq is so cool, maybe I was also impressed like each of you guys around the table when I joined them. So it was my first Middle East job which I'm doing. So I was pretty much, the French culture has been ingrained, and I was pretty happy there. But again, one of the leaders over here, they were very impressive. And when I have spoken to them, probably he was able to change my mind in less than half an hour. So I think to just answer briefly, what really makes Maastricht so special, I think it's the leadership and their mindset, the mindset to accept the reality and to change, right? So that is one thing which I've found here. So it's not that Maastricht is probably the richest bank or it has got a lot of funds to transform. But what I'm really amazed is that the mindset of adapting to the change in a frugal manner. So today, majority, if I had to really look at the way that we are transforming, majority of the transformations are frugal. And before we invest and before we take a call, so there are multiple options which have been considered, and also looking at what is the best way to really take this approach. And other key paradigm change, what I've really realized, what Maastricht has done probably ahead of the other banks, is moving towards customer-centric design or customer-centric transformation, and moving away from operation-centric transformation. So majority of the times, you see that most of the banks, they are pray for operation-centric transformation. So you have been used to do some things in a particular way, and you want to replace the manual staff with digitization or with digital assets. So that's more like you already have the operations in place and you are just digitizing your operating model. That will not really yield a lot of benefit. The real benefit comes from going back and redesigning and putting the customer and the user journeys in the center, and then redesigning your process so that it's a seamless front to back digitization. So that's something which I've found very interesting. And other thing what I really was amazed when I looked at Maastricht is the readiness to work with the open ecosystems. May it be fintechs, may it be the peer banks, may it be the consortiums, or may it be the central bank for that matter. So if you look at it, majority of the handshakes or the interaction data exchanges what we have today with the peer, either our customers, corporate customers or the central bank, or even the peer banks to some extent, are all they're all digital channels, STP channels. So there is no manual intervention there. So just to looking at the customer centric evolution, the neobank, probably one of the the digital 100% digital, I would say, branches of Maastricht. So that was the genesis of it. So they wanted to really redesign their process and then adapt the entire internal processes, putting customer at the center. That was the beginning, and now we are scaling it out to the other divisions of the bank. And certainly, I think Maastricht has seen a tremendous, transformation in the last few years, and I hope it continues and will do a good job. So when I was brought in, my mission was very simple. It's like 100% STP for all the operations. So go do whatever you are supposed to do. So so it's interesting.
Now we know why it took half an hour to convince you. With that kind of mandate, who's not going to jump on board?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have been doing so much of learning and so much of stuff, and you want an opportunity to really jump in and then put it to practice. And Maastricht gives me that opportunity. That's where I think it excels.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And finally, the only person on our panel who's not from a bank, but from insurance, and that too heading health insurance. So Abhishek, please a very quick intro and your first thoughts on this topic.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm very honored to be part of this panel. I'm the odd man out here because I'm not from the banking, I'm from the insurance. I've been into insurance for last 18 years, last 5 years in UAE market, and prior to that, I was with India market. Different aspects of the insurance. I started with sales, then moved into product management, underwriting, process management. So seen the entire ecosystem, and I can relate a lot with what our fellow colleagues are talking about here in terms of the automation, digitalization, which is happening. Like Pinto or Sandeep or Palani mentioned about that, what companies are talking is digitalizing the processes. But what is very crucial is keeping the customer at the center and then designing a process around it and see how we can have a very easy straight through processing, which gives the customer a very good experience, because that will lead to experience for the customer and the revenue growth. So with that in mind, and also how we involve the entire ecosystem, which is the entire organization in this transformation phase, because that's one of the aspects which most of the organization miss about when they're talking about digitalization, that it's just a mandate from the top, so we have to do. But how do you involve all your employees in this transformation and how it make it interesting for them? So that's something very crucial. I have seen a lot of transformations in the different companies I've worked with. So I've worked with ICICI Lombard, Max Bupa, Royal Sundram, and I was with Daman Health Insurance, which is the leading health insurance player in UAE. And last 2.5 weeks, I have joined an insurtech firm. So shifted the sites from insurance to insurtech, and I can very well relate that fintech and banks are not the opposite sides, but they are complementing each other. Similarly, even for the insurtech and insurance companies, it's about complementing each other.
Right.
So a lot of things are happening in different spaces, and we can work together to see that how we can streamline this entire journey, not only from the operation, but from the customer experience perspective. So looking forward to learn a lot from you guys and contribute from my experience.
This is how brilliant our panel is, that 30 minutes of the conversation have happened and we just finished the introductions. So this is why I like keeping these conversations very free-flowing. So So traditionally in India, at least, what we've noticed is BFSI as an industry, could be BFS or I, are traditionally a little archaic in terms of infrastructure, in terms of technology that they adapt or want to leverage or want to deploy. Some of the largest customers that Compass has, in fact, are these banking companies who say, "Bhai, we have 300,000 workforce scattered across India. We're unable to talk to them when we want to. We're unable to communicate with them when we want to. So how to bring them onto one particular platform?" Which is what at Compass we do, what Gladson said, which is on the platform, you know what your incentives are, you can calculate your incentives, and there is also the payout without any delay, right? But this is the reality in India, where even now we're still doing things in a certain traditional way because the industry demands it. How different is it in the Middle East? Are the rules, are the laws slightly more strict? Is adoption both? Because as Abhishek said, it doesn't make sense simply to introduce an automation if no one is going to use it and leverage it, right? How are things slightly different, if at all, in the Middle East for you guys when it comes to embracing technologies and deploying these across your workforces? Gladson, maybe you want to take this first?
Yes. In that sense of the term, it is no different. Of course, there are some localizations and country-specific things which work out here. The churn rate might be a little different when it comes to staffing. Then again, the number of products that a particular staff sources is also the product mix, and the range of those products may be a little different. But in principle, the same challenges remain here, like in any other geography, and hence the same opportunities also remain. One of the things, and to pick up from a point which Abhishek and partly Palani mentioned also, is the very little automation that has been done in this specific areas in the banks that I have been working with. What I have noticed is the automation is limited to that part of the process where there is a concentration of staff, and it's more like FT saving on the staff. But what is required is keeping the customer in center. A lot of business process reengineering needs to be done over a process before you automate it. That part has been lacking, is what I've seen, because like we all know, if a process is inefficient, and essentially this was built in an era where the technology was not at the same level as it is right now. Merely automating parts of that process may not give you that benefit, and that is the challenge which banks here have. So it's a culture thing, because automation need not be driven as an operations mandate to reduce staff or FT or a cost. It has to be seen as a strategic driver in how it can be employed in a way where you drive sales and business. That's my experience in this particular area.
No, I agree. I think it's imperative to say robots are not here to replace your job. They're simply here to make your life easier.
I would just
Right.
like to add on to that what Pinto was mentioning about that business process reengineering need to be done, because uh, I'm sure you might have experienced the same in your career, where what we try to do is, okay, this is how the system is working, and then we define our processes around the system, rather than saying, okay, this is what the process should be, and then we define the systems. We are going other way around, which is creating a problem. And even on the automation piece, there was a manpower involved who's downloading and uploading a file. Okay, we build a bot, we'll do the download upload. We are not thinking that how we can automate this entire process,
Right.
and make sure that this is an end-to-end without any kind of involvement, any kind of a manual or a robotic intervention, how we can streamline this process. So that's a very, I will say, a mind shift change which need to be brought in right from the top to the bottom. That will help in this entire journey of the transformation. And be it in any aspect, whether it's in the operation side, for insurance, if we talk about claims, is a very big piece, because, and especially in health insurance, it's a high volume driven. So you need to bring a lot of automations, and which will bring in efficiencies. And not only on the claims, but even on the customer journey. And a lot of gamification can be done on the customer journey, that what are the kind of products we want to offer, and build a lot of AI and MLs that, and build that into gamification, so that it helps the customer to pick up the right plan, what he's looking for. So we are moving in that direction, but it's a long way to go.
But it's also a function of, like you said, in health insurance specifically, automation still has a long way to go, because if I'm not mistaken, you said that even the final upload has to happen after a doctor's check, right? After an actual medical doctor's check.
Yes.
So maybe hybrid automation, so marry automation with human intervention wherever required to speed up the process.
Correct.
Right?
I think automation always gets married with manual intervention. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't replace. I mean, that's really futuristic if you believe that computers are going to think for us. I mean, at the end of the day, we all still need our
No,
jobs.
we're still telling them how to think.
No, yeah. But one of the things that we have found, for example, I do a very small part of automation in the greater scheme of things that you guys handle, which is on the sales incentive piece. Everybody loves it. Everybody's like, manual uploads are no longer required. You're plugged into the system, data is flowing. You've got real time relative to what the turnaround time was earlier. That was another subjective thing that I had to bring in, because people think real time is 2 seconds. I'm like, bhai, you're doing your calculation once a quarter. Once a month is also real time now in retrospect, and in relation to that. Where people get caught out now is exactly this: the process definition, which is not being put in place over all these years, because it was manual. A simple thing: I have a customer who's gone live with me on the 1st of April. Their marketing team has still not come back. We're on the 15th of June. They still haven't come back with the incentive plan for this quarter.
Yeah.
The idea behind that was because they were used to years of just sending it out on WhatsApp, telling people, "Ha, ho jayega. It will get calculated anyway end of June. So you guys just work towards these numbers. We'll make it big for you."
Right.
And this is not resident to this one particular pharma company. I'm looking at a beverage company, which a monthly incentive plan is released on the 10th of the month. You've lost 30%, 33% of the month. Your sales guys are not out there driving business because they can see that potential. It's become like a situation where organizations are trying to drive the ethos, saying, variable ho jayega, you just do your numbers.
You do your work.
Yeah. No longer is it becoming and that's where we are trying to see that paradigm shift. And that's where we see a lot of results. Now, I mean, people ask me, how do you project such great numbers? Are you teaching people to sell better? I'm like, no, I'm not teaching people how to sell better. Because for me, I believe that sales is something that is innate. You're either born with it, you can't learn it. Which is why some people go into product and marketing and things like that. That's just jokes apart. But end of the day, I think if what automation does in one facet is actually brings to light deficiencies that existed in a system, especially process oriented, and tightens up that process. And for the end user, who is either your salesperson or your customer, most importantly, customers, the transparency that automation brings in and the instant gratification that they are able to experience takes that up one, number of notches. A customer who is on, say, reward points, when he's, think about a concept like this, wherein today we've all had credit cards. Other than you, Medani, youngster that you are, all of us had credit cards for over 2 decades. We've had reward points being accumulated on our credit cards. In the earlier days, you had to go to a branch, get your physical coupons, go and redeem those points against it. Then came the digital age, wherein you could choose. You got that little card. It had points credited to it. You could go swipe it in particular outlets.
Right.
Today, we are working towards an option wherein the banks have given people credit card loyalty points. They're using those credit card points every time they swipe their card at a merchant terminal. The merchant terminal is saying, you have so many points available to you. Would you like to redeem against it? That already started a few years ago. Today, it's coming to the perspective where the loyalty engines have tied up with the merchant, saying that if a guy comes in, and with the bank, if a guy comes in to redeem, say 50 points on the terminal, the merchant is extending a further discount as a cash back to that customer. And he's then going to be, so then the usage of the cards is going up. So a simple manual intervention where the tie-up has happened between merchant and loyalty partner and the customer being the end recipient is driving sales, both usage for credit card companies is driving usage of sales for the merchant itself. And nothing has changed in the ecosystem. The merchant, discounts always existed, loyalty points always existed, banks always gave you reward points, but just the whole process being tied up in a 360-degree fashion with keeping the customer in the center, you're now driving greater business.
I think seamless becomes such a key word, right? Where the customer doesn't even realize so many touch points are coming. He's interfacing with so many touch points. Sandeep, you brought up an interesting thing that we were talking about, which was everyone here has talked about a sales angle for automation. How are we when it comes to marketing, on the marketing side of automation?
So, you're right. So we spoke about this briefly earlier. We at CBD are trying to minimize the need for sales.
Okay.
And actually let the customer do the onboarding himself, and let the customer do the buying himself. So, my dependence on that particular credit card sales guy going out and doing that is reducing by the day. Because I'm just enabling it and making it much easier for you as a end customer to actually access the product instantly using just your app, sitting from the comfort of your home, office, or in your car. Literally in 2 minutes, you can get away that. And so that's where the automation, and our digitization efforts have sort of been focused on, whether it's opening up an account, whether it's getting a credit card, whether it's getting loan, and actually getting money credited into your account. So literally in a few minutes, you've got money in your account without you having to sign a single piece of paper, without you having to submit 3 months bank statements. And we were as guilty as anybody else in terms of wanting all of that earlier. So it's been obviously a big sort of mind shift change for us to be able to accept it, for us to get this pushed through, and for not just us, but the entire industry to get this pushed through with regulators, support, and whatever else. So that's been where the whole drive of digitization and marketing automations really work. So while yes, sales is important, again, you touched upon, Ajay, you touched about the whole hybrid piece. Again, even with banking, the Middle East is slightly probably different from the West, and probably the UAE, and the India and the Middle East are pretty similar. But I don't think in the Middle East you will ever get to a pure digital only sort of play. Customers here like that human touch. So we will never ever get to that stage where we will have, the zero. People still like that physical branch. In my previous bank, we used to run a similar program like the Maastricht Millionaire of loyalty, not a loyalty program. It was a rewards program, which every month you would have prizes being churned out. you used to have guys who have invested millions, literally millions, but who would come in at the end of the month to sit with the branch manager over a cup of coffee to say, did I win? Oh, okay, fine. Oh, I won 200 dirhams. Okay, great. Just that physical interaction.
The comfort.
And it's the comfort. I mean, it's the cup of tea, whatever else. He's asked about his family, gets more business in, and that's done. So that aspect is something that's crucial. That will still stay here. I mean, especially with the older generation. Younger generation, my kids, you might not have them. I mean, I don't think my kids ever walked into a bank, and I don't think they'll probably ever will. But I mean, it's a generational thing. Right. But I mean, you need to therefore be able to make sure that you're offering customers the convenience. If you want to be digital, you want everything seamless, using an app, technology is here we've got the solution. But if you still feel more comfortable discussing your loan requirement or wanting that personal touch, you've got that option. It's not that, I mean, and there are banks here, without naming them, I mean, where or other service providers where you're trying to get through on a call center and you're just going in through that automated and you want to kill somebody at that point in time.
You just want to speak to a human voice, absolutely.
So that is frustrating. So you need to have that option available. So that whole hybrid, we call it phygital. I mean, again, in the spirit of sort of new brands and new terminologies. So the physical come the digital, the phygital sort of aspect. And I think that is here to stay. I mean, you will never, especially for some of those slightly more complex products, if it's a loan restructuring product. I mean,
you talk about investments, particularly.
Investments as well. But again, investments, I mean, we've actually gone the other route, wherein we're saying investments, we're actually making it easy for you to do it without the need for an advisor, because the robo is doing the piece for you. Right. So we were the first bank, and we still are the first bank in the Middle East to actually launch a robo advisory investment solution. Again, using your app, you can invest in ETFs in the US, over 8,000 ETFs, and the app does the entire tracking and monitoring and buying itself. So it's active management of a portfolio, literally buying and selling without you needing to worry about what Mr. Powell is going to do tonight in terms of the Fed the hike. I mean, let the app do the thing, buying Japan, selling Tokyo, whatever it is. Right. So and that what we've also done with this particular app is made it much easier for people to avail. So the entry point is just $500. You're not locked in. You don't need to stick to it with some of the other plans where you have locked in for 2 years, penalties if you break. You can withdraw when you want. You can add more. You can create multiple portfolios. You can create a portfolio for buying a car. You can create a portfolio for a kid's education. You can create a portfolio for whatever else. I mean, and you just answer a few questions in terms of simple questions in terms of your risk profiling. That helps the app sort of assess your risk profile, and then your portfolio is done. And then you set up if you want to set up a standing instruction, by all means. If you miss 2 months and then you come in on the 3rd month, no issues. I mean, the app just needs a minimum $500 for it to be invested. If you spend $499.99, it'll stay as cash. Right. And then the more you put in, the better it does. And again, live example, and we've obviously done this. We've tied up with a fintech based out of Belgium to sort of again highlighting the point earlier. We didn't have the necessary expertise to be able to do this, build this in-house, but that's where we partnered with the fintech who had the necessary expertise, brought that on board, and went out into market. And again, I think one of the key changes, thanks to digitization, automation, is this whole the embracing of the MVP concept and of being able to saying, I don't want to wait till I get it picture perfect. I mean, even if it is with nuts and bolts, I mean, it's a minimum viable product. Let me just get it out there, because speed is of more essence than actually trying to get it perfectly, tuned. Right. And then you keep iterating as you go along, and then you keep improving it as you go along. Right. I think that's again one of the key sort of shifts that we are witnessing thanks to digitization.
We're such traitors to ourselves, right? I mean, my first job was doing wealth management for Citibank, and I was doing exactly what your app was doing. I saw the customer do his risk profile, balance his portfolio, and then call him up every month and say, can you put more money into your investments? And you're saying an app has replaced me for $500 a month, which doesn't even include any kind of salary over there. And our ticket size was 30 lakh rupees in India. Man, thank God I'm old enough.
No, I mean, robo advisory is $1 trillion industry worldwide. $1 trillion industry. And it's only booming. So, I mean, again, the kind of rate, I mean, like our fees are just 1% per annum. So when you look at it, it's really affordable. So you know, that it just makes more sense for you to.
So Sandeep, if I may ask,
Gone are your City Gold wealth managers.
Yeah,
Sandeep, yeah, what is the average returns what bot manager is returning now?
So again, I mean, based on past, right now, obviously the markets are going through
Low, yeah.
the worst ever conditions. But our past, I mean, even my portfolio, we were delivering about 10 to 12%, again, depending on your risk profile. So you had the high risk, the growth, the moderate, I mean, so depending on that, and based on our past track record, for the high growth portfolio, year on year, for the last 10 years, the app has delivered 12% returns.
Nothing changes. We used to use
Without leverage.
Nothing
Without
changes.
leverage.
Without a half. Nothing changes. With the same pitch we used to have in 2002.
Yeah.
How much did my portfolio give me? Going by 1980 to 2000, if you look at the average, it's 12 to 14% with a balanced equity and debt. And of course, whatever returns you have, you should put into life insurance because then that'll give you.
That'll save you, yeah.
That'll save, the risk of living too long would be covered, and the risk of dying early is also covered. So life is good.
No, but to be honest, what I'm actually waiting to see, and I mean, right now it's actually this was one of our case studies that we said on the investment. But when we looked at the past data, we noticed that whenever, and again, you know, over the last 10 years, we've gone through a boom, right? I mean, the stock market has gone exponentially. But even while growing exponentially, we've noticed that every year there's been a correction.
Yeah.
Every year there has been one point when the market has fallen 20%, 30%, sometimes as much as 60%. It's then recovered quickly.
Yeah.
But what the app does is that when the market falls, you don't see that. So falling 60%, it's making sure that you fall only at 20%. And when the upside happens, you're there to benefit from that. So I'm actually seeing that right now in my portfolio. I mean, my portfolio, I have, and again, what we've done is recently we've also introduced a self-investor, because again, this market, we still have a lot of people who feel that they know it better, and they want to be doing that, including me. So it was not on our roadmap initially, to be honest. We had said that we wanted to enhance the app and do more functionalities, but then the demand that came in was much stronger for a self-investor portfolio. So within the robo-advisory CBD investor, we've got now a self-investor app. So wherein you now pick and choose, you decide NVIDIA, you decide Apple, you decide, I mean, your call. And we're just giving you the platform to be able to do that. And real time, better rates, so forth. My self-investor portfolio is down 25%. My robo is down some percent. So I mean, you know, it's there. I mean, you know, I have the right thing.
No, but just to add to you, Sandeep, and this is an interesting element. What automation has done, regardless of the market, is it has removed the human emotional or sentiment element to the investing and trading process on one hand, and introduced discipline, which a normal investor who's having a 9-to-5 job and who's not only having investment as his primary occupation, I think he will not be so disciplined as much as automated robo kind of a product will help him to do. Yes, when the markets are doing bad, both human as well as a robotic investment will have some impact on the results. But my experience with this technology has been that human element, which is the psychological element where you get attached to your trades, for example, in short-term trading in general, but in investments in the long term, that part has been corrected by automation and robots in general. So that's very interesting addition to our tools.
So this is very interesting because Gladson, if I were to just quote what you said, the fact that emotion is taken out of the equation is what makes automation work, right? Successfully.
Absolutely.
Not going to throw you guys a googly, which is in your little Middle East, you are overbanked beyond belief, right? I mean, there's something you told me the number in the afternoon, it blew my mind. So if I am to understand this correctly, all of you said keep a customer at the center of it while you're building your automation, right? Now we are saying automation, however, removes the human vulnerable element and is kind of, very, very cut and dry about it and knows how to forecast and all. So is automation therefore a differentiator in the overcrowded market in Middle East?
So answer that first up, Medini. So the human or the sentimental or the emotional angle has both parts to it. The positive part to it and the negative part to it. The positive part to it is the personal touch that you want to have with your banker, with your fellow people, and the relationship and bonding and networking that you come through it, right? But there is a negative part to it, especially when it comes to investments and trading in general. When you have a certain investment based on certain decision that you've taken, either through your research or through help research, then you start getting attached to that idea. So it's like flipping a coin, right? You may get it right 50% of the time, you may not. But if you stick to the concept of I am always right, you are not going to do good to your investment portfolio, right? That element is being removed out by the automation. But the positive element, and I agree with all my co-panelists here, saying that there is certain part of that human interaction which will never go away, including all the automation that you want to do.
Right. But
if I may, Medini. So your point, I mean, yes, we are overbanked here and we are all fighting for the same customers. Yeah. Everybody here in the Middle East has at least 2.5, 3 cards in their pocket, has multiple banks that they work with. I mean, whether there'll be a main account now, in fact, gone are the days, and again, I mean, without giving away my age, I've been here long enough. But 20 years back, I mean, people used to stick to one bank because it was, banks made it more difficult for you to switch, right? So, I mean, you had your salary going into one bank and then you'd sort of try and stick to that to the extent possible. You'd only move out if, for example, you're looking for a loan and your incumbent bank doesn't give it to you. So then you'd sort of make the, today, it's not the case. Now, I mean, everybody has at least 5 banks that they have. There's one which is for a saving bank, one is an investment bank, one is your piggy bank for your kids' education or whatever else. Right. So the, and again, we are raising the bar across the industry, right? I mean, automation now is almost, and digitization is almost a given. So what's, I mean, and therefore the only differentiation is service. So if everybody is giving an instant account in 2 minutes, everybody is giving you a credit card with this thing, then the only differentiator has got to be, okay, and you can only fight in terms of, I mean, again, because we are also a bank and because banking in general is a commoditized sort of industry. I mean, if I say a cashback giving 10%, I mean, Mashra can copy it and say 12% tomorrow without even blinking. And it's not about trying to win the prize game. It's about service. And again, going back to the customer. So that service comes in from a digitization aspect as well. So like I said, I mean, if I've got a problem, how easy is it for me to be able to get it resolved, whether it's using technology, whether it's using humans. Right. I need to be able to get it resolved. And if I find that a challenge, that's where then I will lose out as a bank as opposed to right. So I mean, service is going to be your only. We are a industry. I mean, we are a service industry. Right. So we have to think exactly like a Google does or exactly like a hospitality industry does, and think, how can we make sure that we are able to address all our customers' concerns, or I mean, give them what they want and more, right. Without and be one step ahead. Otherwise, it's and then again, I mean, later on, it's all the whole thing about relationship building, making sure that if I keep you happy with an account, then I can cross sell you a card, and if I keep you happy with a card, then I can cross sell you a loan, then I can do whatever else. I'd be naive to think that you wouldn't go around shopping, especially in today's day and age. Right. You would definitely compare. And I mean, and again, the benchmark for service excellence is now being set by the likes of your Amazons and Googles and Facebooks. And I mean, so therefore I need to be able to match that. I can't just say, oh, I'm a bank, I can get away with it. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, I as a customer is very different now.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting, and I really want to actually. Sorry, Medini, I'm going to jump on your platform right now. But Abhishek, banking has always been about, way back in the day, if you open an account, you get a toaster. It worked that way. There was always a gift that was given. Insurance was always sold under threat.
Has to, no? That's the function of the,
Yeah, but I mean, today, how has digitization changed the entire customer experience? Today, see, health insurance, for example, in the Middle East, you pick up a job before you negotiate your salary, you negotiate health benefits and education. So health being a big one. The sheer fact that it's expensive. So no matter how much money in the bank, it's not going to be enough to take care of your health. How has digitization affected, or rather, how have you brought digitization to bear around customer experience from an insurance perspective? And you're working with an insurtech now, so I'm assuming that you would have some insights on that.
Interesting, Ajay. Still not there at all, I will say. When we talk of Middle East market, it's kind of a mandatory cover. So I'm joining a company. My employer will have to give me an insurance. As a end user, I don't have to say what kind of coverage I want. I get what my employer has given to me. If it talk back of India, it was still a push, but thanks to COVID, now slowly people have started understanding what the importance of health insurance.
Yep.
So there's a lot of push which is happening, not a push, but a pull from the customer side, where they are trying to understand, and they understand what is the kind of risk they are having if they don't have health insurance. It's still a long way to go because there's so many companies. Wait, India, and in UAE, it's not only overbanked, it's overinsured. For a 10 million population, we have 60 insurance companies and almost 35 TPAs. So it's a very crowded market.
interesting.
As a customer, if you go on any of the web aggregator platform or even on the insurance company website, after 5 minutes you'll get lost.
Mhm.
You will not understand what are the different products, how each compared to the other one, either from the same company or from the different companies. And that's where you say, okay, let me go to our distributor who can tell me which is the best plan for me. So still we need to work on and understand what the customers are looking for, and through a gamification say, okay, these are the right products for you, which you should be looking forward to. No. Have we reached there? No. A lot of works is happening on the digitalization on the insurance side, but that's more from the operations perspective, not from the customer experience perspective. Yes, obviously from the operations side and claim side, that's also a customer experience, because when you're in a hospital or you're on a garage to repair a car, how soon you get the bill processed, how soon your claims are getting approved. So yes, that experience is there. But when you talk about onboarding a customer, we are still not there.
No, but
So
I
it's
guess
still
your customer experience with claims is a huge one. For example, you would always, when you're being discharged from a hospital in India, for example, you'd set aside 6 hours for discharge purely for insurance claims. You went to the garage, it's crazier. I've seen recently, my bank, for example, in India, has given me while they say pre-approved loan, it's taken it a step ahead on buying a car. They just ask you to enter the dealer name, the model of the car that you're buying, which is subject to that dealer. And they said, digitally they send across the approval to the dealer. Gone are the days where you have to go book a car, put your money down, go back to the bank, give your income statements, get all that signed off. It's
But
on a
this is
mobile
happening
app.
through your bank. That's the beauty.
Can you imagine a bank, and you're talking about the guys who are always in suits, like all of us, all of them here, who would give you first an appraising eye as to whether you really are
For a
suitable
car
for a
or
loan
not,
or not.
exactly.
And then you flip across to insurance, wherein in claim settlement, it's about taking a photograph, sending it out on an app. The companies are actually, they have gone are optical readers. It's now become image readers. They're understanding whether this is accurate. It's getting done, and claims are processed immediately. It's uncanny how the customer experience is improved.
So, Ajay, like if we talk about 10, 15 years back, If your car has met with an accident, you take it to garage, wait for 3 days for the surveyor to come and inspect, and then, okay, say this much is approved.
Exactly.
Today, on the spot, you open the app of the insurance company, click the pictures, upload, instantly approved.
Approved, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of work has happened on the claim processing. Insurance, even on the health, a lot of work has happened.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about onboarding the customer,
It's
still
a
a
little
long way to
difficult,
go.
yeah. I guess we'll get there someday. I mean,
Yes, we'll
you're,
get
you're,
there.
talk- you're talking about taking the car to the garage and waiting for a surveyor to come for 3 days. And there have been cases in India where you were not allowed to move your car because you had to take an auto to go bring the policeman to file your FIR, because only then your claim process would start. It's as bad as that.
Right.
So on the police front out here now, actually again the police has got. I mean, Dubai police, anyway, slightly ahead compared to the rest of the world. So everything's again digital. So if you've got an accident, you
Go on
just
the app,
open the Dubai police app. You scan this thing. You scan the other guy's number plate. You put in your details, and if you've agreed in terms of who's right or wrong, then it's an easier process. If there is a dispute, then they will step in, obviously. But I mean, if you agreed saying that, yeah, you actually take a photo of the damage, send it across, you get your pink slip or red slip fairly instantly.
So
all
you've
digital.
Abhishek is
taken
right.
care of claim
There
process,
is
you've
lot.
taken care of the judicial process.
Yeah.
You're just cutting jobs. You started with the wealth manager.
But
You
you're also
took
saving
away the
somebody
fund
money.
manager.
No.
Now the police, the judges, and the surveyors, they're all gone. Everybody's
No,
gone.
but
I
we're
think
adding
it's
new
not,
jobs, right?
it's
Ajay? The
not
whole
just
point is
cutting
we're
the
adding new
jobs.
jobs as well.
So we
Yeah,
always look at it as, one-to-one mapping, but it's not true either, because the volumes what we used to have when we were manually processing were not even, 1 by, 100th or so less. So now with the digitization, what we have realized is the volumes have increased. The people are being redeployed for different roles. It's not that they're totally losing the job.
Right.
So at least from being a digitalization leader, I would not like to call it as losing jobs, but rather than they're doing something more valuable, right?
Reallocation.
Yeah, I
Reallocation
agree with
and more valuable.
Palani. So it's a very wrong notion that digitalization means cutting the jobs.
Yeah, it's
It's
actually
about supporting or increasing the productivity so that we can handle more transactions in a given time. So that's how it should be looked at. Because if you're looking at it from the other angle, then you will be going totally wrong.
I agree. I don't think it's a cost optimization. I think it's an enhancement in role. Again, like, the little bit that we do on the sales incentivization part, typically our software system comes in and the people who feel threatened are the sales operations team. The MIS guy who knew Excel sheet, VLOOKUP, pivot tables, absolutely fine. In all of our cases, not a single person has lost their job. What has happened instead is that person has now become a campaign manager, because the mundane job of putting data together physically has disappeared. He or she can now focus on quality, ascertaining which are the developed markets, which are the developing markets, how do you slice and dice an incentive program, how do you particularly target a team to ensure that you can drive productivity over there. And that's where their jobs are getting enriched. They're now not sitting 15 days of the month, just doing Excel sheet maths and then publishing some dashboard over there. They're now getting into a higher level of understanding how the business works. And that's where we've seen a lot of advantage. And that's why I tell my prospective customers also, don't look at this as a cost saving adventure. This is more to do two sides. Yes, your top line, bottom line is actually going to go up because you're going to have higher productivity. And more importantly, you're going to have higher productivity from the back-end staff. People who are, in those dark rooms sitting and working on numbers through the night are now going to have better jobs to do in a more focused fashion. I think that's a great call with regard to digitization.
In the UAE, Ajay, in the UAE, at least I can say we are past that phase. I think people have realized that higher value jobs are now going to people who are manning those low value jobs, which can be passed on to machines. So that realization has come about because I've been in talk with more than one banks, and that notion which came in early with saying like, displacing people or, the outsourcing kind of a dilemma. That has passed. Now I think the challenge more is in terms of prioritizing which process to be taken first based on value, and then how do you reassign more high value adding job to their portfolio. So that's where we are. So that phase we have crossed.
Yep.
Right.
So
I think it's also not just that they will replace my job, but also, oh, there is a new CRM that increases my workload. I think there needs to be a little bit of education and training, therefore saying, we're bringing in this technology not to increase your workload. If you do this efficiently and correctly, here is how much more time you will save. Right? I think that becomes important.
Yep.
Yes, Palani.
So we were talking about Mashreq as a digital bank and transforming bank, but the real backbone of that is Mashreq is first a learning bank.
Wonderful.
So the amount of emphasis what people have internally for the employees to learn, to evolve, and to mobilize within the organization, that's amazing. And it's so transparent over here. It doesn't matter what the opening is, where you have a new role which you want to really take up, it's being shared with every individual in the organization. So, and the role is also, the rotation is also done purely based on skills. So you groom yourself and then you ramp yourself up, and then there's no limits to your career progression. So that's something which is really, really working over here, which I've seen.
So top-down belief from leadership is absolutely critical, right?
Critical,
if we talk
yes.
about automation. Palani, what do we do in the case when there are mergers and acquisitions that happen and multiple companies have multiple systems and processes in place? They've been working for them. But now suddenly company A has acquired company B. And now there is the tussle about my technology is better than yours.
Yeah.
How do you at that point decide what do you leverage, what do you part with?
So maybe I was lucky to be part of this journey between, New Edge and SocGen merger in my past experience, I can say past life. Very interesting scenarios, right? So one is, of course, there's a smaller entity and there's a larger entity. When they merge, I think culturally people expect the smaller entity to be inferior to the larger entity, but that's not the case. Right. So normally today, you can look at fintechs. So today there are some acquisitions just purely from the technology acquisition perspective. So people are buying fintechs and they're buying startups for the technology what they're selling rather than the market share or the profits what they're making, right? So for us, New Edge is one such acquisition what we have done. And predominantly, if you look at it, SocGen's agency business was, they didn't really pay attention. I won't say it's weak, they didn't pay attention because the revenue was, very little over there. However, New Edge on the other side was very well versed in the agency business, and it's a small fintech which they have started. So when we acquired that, the idea was to strengthen our agency business by using their assets. And very interesting facts about this New Edge. They have zero reconciliations, which means there's only single source of truth, and which is almost next to impossible for the large organizations today to really achieve that. So we have a lot of programs and a lot of investment being done on the data cleansing, data lineage tracking, and auditability of the entire data transformation, which is happening within the organizations. But I think it is much more simpler and straightforward for a ground up organization which is starting in a greenfield manner to achieve that, because it's only one system, one truth, and the transit, there's nothing multiple, there's no multiple copies in the transit. It's a beautiful thing. But again, when we acquired it and when we merged it, obviously we had to see what is important for the business. The business need to run. So we have first integrated what matters most. So it's more about unifying the key data points like inventories, and at the end of the day, the sales inventory and your accounting, all these flows need to be integrated first. We did that, and after that we have chosen which is the better asset in the both worlds, and then we have routed all our flows to these assets. So predominantly this would become much more easier if the organization is already matured in its IT, if they're using microservices and APIs, which is a component architecture. And each of these things would become the reusable assets, IT assets, which can be plugged and played. So that's my experience. And certainly, I think if you're touching the legacy organizations, the complexity would be much more higher, and the investment would be much more higher. So my whatever I have learned from this experience is sometimes it is better to discard both the systems which are legacy and start something new. Right?
That was actually my third question. I mean,
Yeah.
is that just the easier way to do it?
So there is that scope, and so instead of really trying to scale some legacy system in a forceful way, just ditch both the things and then go for something which is more scalable.
More agile
today with in agile and with cloud native architecture. I think that's fantastic. Now I think the more, so the other aspect which we talk less or don't talk too much about is the way the technology domains have been evolving over a period of time. The technology stacks itself. Today, if you look at majority of the technology frameworks, what we have today, they're coming with the components. They're not asking you to learn a language and build something for yourself, but they're coming with the reusable blocks. So which you can actually handpick, and a lot of open sources, they're offering a lot of utilities. So building something new within the bank has become much more cheaper, easier, and faster than ever before.
Right.
So with that option available, I think it's very important to see, do we really want to choose one of the two things, or you want to build something from the scratch?
Very nice. Wonderful. Okay. This has been very, very good. No worries, Ajay.
Sorry, Medini, I just wanted to jump in here.
Yes.
Palani touched upon a very interesting point that sometimes it's better to give away the legacy systems and build something from the scratch. Is your difficulty, and what are the challenges you foresee if we have to take up this? Because a lot of times management or the stakeholders say, no, we have to continue with this because this is having, maybe from the regulatory or compliance perspective, whatever reason, and try to build the automation and build more layers and layers on that system, and we make it much more complex than what it was.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think that was directed to you.
Absolutely. So there are few things, right? So there are untouchable systems. IT is also a very interesting world. So if you're an IT guy, you would enjoy it. So I don't know how many of you have read the book called as, what is it, the Zoo Keeper or something. So here, each system has got its own importance within the organization. So there are few systems which people are afraid to touch because they have been there for ages. People don't know the business logic. People don't know what has gone in there. Somehow it is working and we don't want to touch it, right? So we see these things. These are, like our Bhishma Pitamahas or whatever you call in the systems. This thing, they are there, and people don't want to touch it because they're very worried. But what people don't really realize it's equally highly risky to keep them as they are. The more you try to, build a layer on top of it, an adapter on top of it to really process something, it's only going to add to the pain. It's only going to make you more riskier. And one day when something goes wrong, believe me, your downtime for your organization would go up to 24 to 48 hours. People will still not figure out what is happening. That's a bigger risk. That's a bigger risk of losing customers, losing business, and losing revenue. So now it's a very interesting decision what people have to take. So now when I say people, you have IT experts, you have decision makers who are the leadership, the investors, right? So now the challenge is, IT guys, I think somewhere Elon Musk's wife has mentioned this, right? There are people in suits and there are people in t-shirts. Somehow you need somebody who can understand. The people in t-shirts should be able to understand the language of people in suits. And if they're able to convert that and talk that business language to them and tell that how it would impact their business, certainly they would just, agree for moving ahead and then probably replacing it. And it's internal information, I shouldn't be talking about it, but we still are looking at replacing some large white elephants like this even today as we speak in our organization too. I'm saying it's a brave move, and you need to have a leadership which is ready to take that move. But again, for looking at my context, it doesn't happen on the day one. We have again and again for last 3-4 years, we have been able to prove them saying that everything what we replace is working better than the previous one at a cheaper rate, low cost of ownership, and at a faster as far as speed, right? So that credibility builds. So when you're going to go and touch something which is large in impact, it's important to create that credibility for your team as a team, that yeah, when you say something, you are able to deliver and deliver it to deliver the value what you have promised. And over a period of time, management and the leadership will start believing in you. So it's a problem of IT guys. So it's the IT world.
Very
right?
nice. Abhishek, I hope that answered your question. All right, let's just do a very quick parting thoughts. We've talked about it now at length. Automation is critical. Keep customer at the center of your journey. Don't automate for the sake of it. You could do piecemeal automations or hybrid automations. Any last parting thoughts about why companies, if there are people who are watching this and they're either in startups or legacy companies, and they need to probably get the buy-in of their top management, or is there anything that is a takeaway saying why automation is the future, and without it the industries will cease to exist?
It's very simple. I mean, from my perspective, if you're not automating, you cannot compete with your competitors. So simple as that. So it's very simple. Today we are all surviving because we are keeping our expenses lesser than our income. As simple as that. It's a top line versus bottom line equation. If you're not automating, you will not be able to control your bottom line. At one point you will peak out and you are going to go belly up. So that's as simple as that from the business perspective. And that's the reason why you need to bring down. It's not about the cost. Today, I think Sandeep spoke about service, right? How are you going to provide a better service at a lesser cost with a higher reactivity?
Yeah.
The only response from that, only way today, as we see today, is automation.
Right.
Nothing more than that. So there's no other way from my perspective.
Sandeep?
I mean, just to add on, I mean, I think there is still, I mean, automation, there is the whole operational automation piece, which we are talking about. But then again, there's far more to it, right? The whole marketing automation piece, the comms piece, wherein if I, like we had spoken about briefly, if I can be far more effective and far more, giving you relevant in terms of my communication. So if I know that Medini is actually actively looking out for a car right now, and I come out to you with a car loan tailored for your needs, I'm minimizing. I don't need to put full page ads in Times of India. I don't need to take radio ads, and I don't need to do that. So my spend is also effective. So is minimized and optimized. So there are many aspects to automation, which is not just only from a cost save perspective, but it's also in terms of saying more effective. So again, your tool in terms of automation for the sales staff to actually drive better performance. It's not just a tool to make it easier for them to get money, but it's also to, what's the knock-on effect of them getting their money faster? Is that added motivation to perform and say, yes, I want to do better, I want to get more money for the next quarter, as opposed to waiting 6 months for last year's performance. So it's real-time rewards, real-time gratification, and therefore better performance.
Abhishek?
So, like Sandeep really touched upon that one, targeted marketing. If I know what a customer is looking for, I will be quick and fast. That's where the automation will help and digitalization will help. Plus, this will also increase the productivity for everyone involved in the ecosystem. And so one thing which is very critical for any automation or digitalization is to involve all your employees. They should understand why we are doing this. Because many times it happens that they are lost in the process. They are clueless what's happening, why it is happening, what is there for them. So any digitalization will be only successful if your entire employee is involved into it, and we can give some kind of incentivization to them as well.
Wonderful. No, absolutely spot on. Gladson?
Yes, to add to my co-panelists, automation drives efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this efficiency can never be achieved with the manual effort that we put in right now, right? That speaks for it. And I think that is testimony that, managements, leadership, even investors have now realized that automation is a level of evolution in some aspect, because all the low value, mundane, routine things have to be automated, given to machines who are much more efficient than humans. And then give those high value jobs, high value KPIs to the humans, and that's how as an entity you will progress, you will evolve. So that notion has to come culturally. It has to come from top down. It has to be driven because initially automation very looked at in a very piecemeal manner. This has changed now. Automation has been looked at as a strategic differentiator right now, and I think that is good. Opportunities are there for us to take up more and more processes and automate them in a meaningful manner. You don't want to build a API to the outer world, which is a Ferrari, and just land up on a two-wheeler inside. The process inside the walls is archaic, right? So that's the whole idea about automation, and I think people are slowly realizing it. That's my thought on that.
Wonderful. And finally, Ajay, closing thoughts.
I agree with all my co-panelists. I think they've stated it succinctly. I think it's a use case for me right here. While you look at automation, I think even digitization is a big one. Just look at the efficiencies that I have achieved today. 4 prospective customers met in 1 hour without having to suffer 7-hour flights up and down, which 3.5 hours back and forth, no hotel costs. I actually got to meet with everybody and find agreement among all of you. But now is when the phygital will come into play, where on 2 sides, I think acquisition front, which is what I'm hearing from Abhishek, from a whole customer-centric loyalty front, which I'm hearing from the rest of my panelists. Fear not, my phygital person called Rahul Makat will be reaching out to all of you saying that you agreed with Ajay. Now he's after me saying that you guys need to sign up with us. But on a serious note, I think it's gratifying that all of you at senior levels appreciate the whole embracing of digitization. I think, like you said, it's top driven. It's all about getting the end user to believe that this is what is going to drive efficiency for them at a personal level also. It's also bringing customer into focus, wherein customers are now, they find their choice truly being democratic. It's not about your local uncle who was an LIC agent coming and thrusting a policy down your throat, or the fact that your parents banked with a certain bank, which is why you need to go there. Customers have choice. The entire ecosystem comes together in an impersonal yet personal fashion, because the consumer has the choice. At the same time, it's a personalized choice. The very fact that, the example of Medni wanted to buy a car, and the bank or the loan issuer knows exactly what car would suit her and
what my budget
how much
is,
she could
all
afford.
of it,
Yeah. So I guess that's it's great. It's been really great talking to all of you, and I wish I was traveling after this. I had done a face-to-face with each one of you, but hopefully, inshallah, next time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sandeep, Abhishek, Palani, Gladson, and Ajay. This was truly wonderful because it was very different from the stuff we normally talk about, because the industry is different and because the geography was new. You're all stalwarts in what you do, and this was absolutely eye-opening to me. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Yes, so like on behalf of course, it was a very interesting discussion, as mentioned by Medini and Ajay. And on behalf of Compass and the Branalytics, I thank all the panelists, Mr. Gladson, Mr. Sandeep, Mr. Abhishek, Mr. Palani, for taking out your precious time, sharing wonderful insights, as mentioned by Medini. And of course, the Branalytics would be reaching out to you again with the entire recorded video session, and we'll also be sharing with our attendees for the, to understand what the session was all about, and reconnecting you with Compass to have some great, interesting brainstorm session. So thank you once again, everyone. And of course, stay safe and please take care of yourselves.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ajay, Medini, and all the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Medini. Thank you, Ajay. Thanks a lot. See you. Bye.